And it's news, I beg your pardon, it's Breakfast Extra. Well, hey, the producers never give us any time to breathe, so it's okay. But welcome to another session here. It's our big story. And now let's talk about these tax laws we've heard so much about from the last week. Nigeria's new tax laws are being sold as long overdue reforms. Now, the government says they will ease the burden on small businesses, they will widen the tax net and also improve compliance without hurting productivity. Now, on paper, it sounds like balance. In practice, Nigerians are asking harder questions. Public reaction has been sharply divided. While some see an attempt to modernize revenue collection, others fear the reforms may deepen pressures on workers and also small enterprises already struggling with inflation, weak wages, and poor public services. For many, the issue is not taxation itself, but it's trust in the system.
Now, to unpack the policy, the politics, and the accountability questions, we are joined by two for now, three hopefully, with different lenses on their issues. Idris Zekeri Junior, a political affairs commentator, Yinka Ogunnubi, an economist and corporate finance expert, and Nnamdi Chiekwu, I hope I got that right, author and a member of Civilian Accountability Advocate. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
But now I think we only have Mr. Zekeri and, of course, Nnamdi. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us for this conversation. First off, Nnamdi, I want to know your takes on the current tax reform that we've been hearing so much about. The authorities have come out to say that, don't worry, your monies are safe inside of your accounts and all of that. But it's a question of trust, whether people trust that they are indeed safe. But what's your take, first off?
Thank you so much for the question. I think in regards to the tax reform, it probably necessitates breaking it down into its constituent parts. I think on one hand, you have to commend the government in terms of its effort to raise its tax to GDP ratio by making the necessary restructuring moves to see that, to execute that. And this has been a consistent problem for Nigeria. As we all know, a lot of our economy is in the informal sector. And so any effort to digitize, to clean up, to bring a wider sphere of Nigerians into the tax bracket or tax net is commendable. And I think that's an excellent effort. There is a question around the timing of the implementation of the new tax laws, and also the fact that, and why the time it is important, is that Nigeria, as we all know, is going through a very difficult economic period at this point. And so as Nigerians are barely able to survive with high inflation, with scarcity of goods, the question is, can they handle the additional burden of taxes, income taxes specifically, that they're not used to paying? And this is a particular issue. Having said that, the biggest aspect of this tax law or change or regimes that gives me great cause for concern is the implementation and the partnership with France in the implementation of that tax law. And the reason why I say this is that we've recently signed, over the last couple of days, an MOU with the French government effectively to work on capacity building, digital infrastructure, and data sharing. And I'm going to try and be tempered in the way that I characterize this MOU, but I have to come to the conclusion that this is probably one of the most brazen acts of or breaches of national security that I think we've ever seen in Nigeria. To the idea that we are going to bring France to the table to help us or to give them access and visibility into our economic infrastructure and our tax infrastructure is beyond galling for me. This kind of compromise of our economic and tax sovereignty is something that Nigerians should be very clear-eyed about. And it's something that we need to scrutinize at the highest levels to make sure that we are not placing ourselves into a very precarious situation with a foreign power. So in my general assessment is, yes, let's commend the government in terms of its efforts to raise tax revenue. The government also needs to be sensitive and careful in terms of the timing of the implementation. But grave questions need to be asked in terms of this partnership with France in the implementation of this new tax infrastructure that we're building.
Now, Zekeri, we're going to come to you with a question, but I really want to double down on this aspect that Nnamdi has just spoken about regarding the partnership with France. Can you make it clearer to us exactly what we're looking at here? What kinds of exposure are we looking at? What kinds of risks might we be uncovering here? Nnamdi, that's for you.
Oh, myself. Oh, in terms of the risk. Oh, well, it opens us up to so many types of risk. There is the risk of economic sabotage, potentially, economic surveillance, unfair competitive advantage. When we are inviting another foreign power to have so much visibility into our economic dashboard, it can't bode well. The other issue is this, is even if, for instance, I'm misinformed in terms of the nature of this partnership, and I am exaggerating, we do also have to question why France. You know, Nigeria is an Anglophone country, and we are bringing a Francophone country, the French people themselves, to supposedly help us with capacity building and digitization, etc. And this is a very mind-boggling effort, because at the moment, France is in disarray. France is desperate. France's debt to GDP ratio is 115%. France has not been able to hold a government together over the last 12 months or pass a budget. And so you are bringing in a country that is quite desperate economically into your tax infrastructure to supposedly help you. And Nigerians should be rightly suspicious of the implications of that. Now, let's say, for instance, that you were even comfortable with the partnership. Let's say you're comfortable with the fact that another foreign nation is coming in to so-called help us with capacity building. What does this say about our domestic players in this space? What does this say about our fintech players, such as InterSwitch, such as Bamboo or Paystack? Are we saying that Nigeria as a nation is incapable of implementing or executing a tax system? Because if that's the case, then we might as well pack up the country and go. I think, and I'm trying to be tempered with my words here, but this is such a brazen attack on our national security and economic interest that it's almost treasonable, to be quite frank with you. And I think the National Assembly has an obligation to look into it and to look into the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration to see if there is grounds for investigation and review of whether this constitutes an egregious or even treasonable act against the nation. I just think it's abhorrent that we would bring France this close to help us with something that should be the responsibility of Nigerians alone.
Right. Now, before I move to Mr. Zekeri, Mr. Yinka Ogunnubi has joined us as well. I'd like to welcome him. Now, Mr. Zekeri, let's move to you, especially because you are more in the influential space. Many citizens argue. Many citizens argue, and it feels like taxing survival than prosperity. Is this the perception politically?
I like the background to my conversation here, and that is what I have always gotten on the social media. They ask if I am an expert in taxation, why I'm so passionate about it. Let me state it for the fact that whereas I am not an expert, or what you call an expert, I didn't study taxation in the university and I don't practice taxes, the laws are meant for human beings and are meant for Nigerians. I'm a Nigerian, and January 1st, which is about 16 days from today, I will also be paying taxes. And like they would usually say, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So if you are a Nigerian and you're going to be paying taxes, you need to study the laws, practices, and of course, teach it. Also, I need to state, because the government thinks I don't like taxes. I see taxes, I actually do like taxes. I see taxes as feeding the goose that lays the golden egg. The problem with the Nigerian goose is that the goose eats too much and this goose lays no eggs. So that is why some of us are critical of the new tax policy. Now, down to your question. We have the highest number of poor people in the world. About 130 million of us are poor. Even some of us who think we are not poor, we are living what we call fake life. We are really pretending to be okay, whereas we are not okay. And then you are bringing a new tax law that fundamentally elevates the money, the amount of money an individual is expected to pay, and reduces the purchasing power of that individual. I'll go further. They say that this tax will, there are benefits to real that now we level the playing field, we help small businesses. I don't see how. A tomato seller that has never paid personal income tax before and makes 10,000 naira a day will be paying taxes in January. A boat driver that has never paid taxes before, personal income tax in this sense, will be paying in January. In fact, these people do not even care the source of your income. They say even our sisters that do hook up and our brothers that do yahoo, whereas we do not encourage these things, are also going to be paying. As long as you have an income, legitimately, illegitimately, these people are concerned about taxing it. Now, to answer your question, Nigerians are not ready for taxes at this time. Charging Nigeria extra tax, let me not call it extra tax because they'll say, oh, they are supposed to pay normally. But the fact is that they don't pay. And then my brother mentioned expanding the tax net. It's a good thing to expand the tax net. I'll give you the fisherman's analogy. A fisherman in Nembe goes to water and gets a bigger net and throws the big net into water and catch a lot more fishes. Are the fishes going to rejoice or the fisherman is going to rejoice? In this case, the fisherman is the government and the fishes are the citizens of the Federal Republic. There is nothing good about this tax law for the citizens. It is meant for government. And I also need to mention, one of the biggest problems we have in Nigeria is pilfering, is stealing, squandermania, people stealing official government resources. When they start collecting taxes, the money they collect in taxes will not have it labeled tax money, will not have labeled oil money. A governor who is a thief will steal tax money. And stealing tax money is like eating blood money because you are stealing from the poor. So I would advise and suggest strongly that Nigeria needs to cure the fundamental problems that beset us. We do not have a revenue problem. What we have is human problem and people who do not know how to manage government resources.
Zekeri, I have a very interesting question, but I'm going to save it until last. It's based on your very strong conviction here regarding the concepts you've just put forward. A nice analogy there with the fisherman and the net. But let's come to Mr. Yinka. Yinka, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. You've just heard what Zekeri said there. Very interesting, isn't it? My question to you is based on trust. Now, I don't know whether these policies are unfair or whether they're just being poorly communicated to the masses. But what do you think? Should Nigerians absolutely trust these reforms?
Thanks for having me. Just confirm you can hear me first, because I'm not sure you can.
We will work on that audio. It sounds a bit low, so we're going to work on it. But please go ahead.
Okay. So let me speak before I answer your question. Let me just respond to something that the last speaker said, that somebody earning 10,000 naira per day will be paying tax in this new law. That's not true. If you're earning 10,000 naira per day, that comes to 300,000 naira per month. And under the new tax law, you don't pay any tax. You pay zero tax. So I think it's important for people to be properly educated about this tax law. As of today, if you are not earning anything more than if you're earning anything less than 50 million naira in a year, your tax rate is low. It's lower than it was in the old rate. So I know we have differences, but I think it's also important that we educate Nigerians rightly on this issue of tax. The issue of whether people should pay taxes or not, that's a separate conversation. But on the merits of the tax law, I think there are merits to it that we can take, and there are some parts of it that we can criticize. Now, do we trust that the organization do we trust this government to do the right thing? What I always say is that the tax laws are not designed to tell you or to give you any guarantees of what will be done. The tax law says pay your tax or go to jail. That's it. It doesn't tell you pay your tax, we will fix the road. And that's the way it is all over the world. What we must do is that in this respect of the tax laws, we must ensure that we're able to make the government accountable, all right, and ensure that for us now that we're paying tax, we must get answers for our taxes. And one of the first things we must do is that we must be able to ask the state government. Most of our taxes as individuals go to the subnationals, the state government, not to the federal government. So Nigerians must begin to wake up and begin to engage a lot of all the state governors to say, look, what do you do with our taxes? What do you do with our payee taxes? What do you do with our VAT? 85% of it goes to you. And when we begin to ask a lot of those questions, I think that we might be able to get some answers. As regards trust, there's a huge trust deficit in governance. Everybody knows that, and it behoves on the government to bridge this gap.
Yinka, thank you. I think my question to you again, thank you for the emphasis, of course, and the clarity as well. In terms of readiness, I'd like us to discuss the readiness for this, because whether we like it or not, these tax reforms are going to be implemented. Whatever you do does not really matter. You are going to be taxed. And of course, like you said, based on the wages, that will take place. But in terms of readiness from the Nigerian standpoint and perspective, are Nigerians ready? If not, will they ever be ready for this tax reform to kick in?
I think the first thing to note is that this current tax reforms was made to simplify the tax code. I don't know if Nigerians know that prior to now, our tax code was written in like 13 different legislations. So what the Nigerian Tax Act has done is to compile them in one tax code that makes it accessible to all. So we can access it. So whether it is a PIT, whether it's a CIT, whether it is a capital gains tax, whatever it is, it's in one code. And it's easier for us to be able to look at, assess, and then get. Nigerians by nature, and I say this as a Nigerian myself that I've been paying tax for the past 30 years. We don't like to pay tax. We look at it and we feel that for whatever reason, we don't trust government, we don't trust what they do with it, because politicians by nature are corrupt. And so our tendency towards it is not to be ready. However, I always say that you always have to imagine and anticipate that there's going to be a time that the Nigerian government or the government will get its acts in order. And so you have to get your acts in order. So this is not a question of whether you are ready or not. By January 1, 2026, if you are not ready, you will get the impact of it. If you are ready, you will be spared the impact of it. But I will say this, that if you are better educated about the tax laws and its advantages, its reliefs and things like that, you will find out that there are a lot of elements of that tax law that are beneficial to individuals, that are beneficial to the small and medium scale enterprises, that are even beneficial to big enterprises. So it is easy to get outraged when we listen to social media and some of the elements of that tax law that is expanded. But look, read the laws yourself, get into the meat and of it, and really be educated. When you do, you'll find out that you might actually benefit from being ready. For instance, if you are a small business or a business name, you are registered as a business name, you might actually realize that probably this is the time for you to upgrade yourself from a business name registration to a limited liability company, because you have protections under the limited liability companies that you will not get under the business name. So you need to be educated. That's just my point. I mean, we can sit down here, argue is good or not, whether we want to pay, whether politicians are corrupt or whatever. It will not change the law. The law will take effect from January 1st, and you have to be prepared.
Now, Yinka, I can't help but notice that there's a bit of a difference between you and Zekeri's opinion here regarding the tax and the new reforms. But I'm going to save that for later. I want to talk about access. The worry for many Nigerians has been that the government or the authorities would be able to access their accounts. We know that the reform also is very heavy on technology, which means transactions are going to be monitored, digital transactions and all of that. But when it comes to access, and Zekeri, this is for you, what are your concerns when it comes to access? Because you noted that everyone's going to get taxed. But what concerns do you have therein?
Your question, I think I have a right of reply.
Go ahead, please.
Who spoke, the last person who spoke,
That's
said,
Yinka.
If you earn 10,000 naira a day, you will not pay taxes. that is being completely economical with the truth. It's falsity. And sometimes I think this is the problem I have with friends of the government. They set out to deliberately confuse. 10,000 naira a day is 300,000 naira a month, which is about 3.6 million in a year. If you earn such money, you will pay taxes in Nigeria. I can actually calculate it and let you have it. It's public knowledge. The 800,000 you are talking about is not monthly, it's yearly. What you have monthly is about 67,000 naira, which is little shy of the minimum wage. So when we talk on public issues, we should set out to educate and not to deliberately confuse. Also mention that paying taxes, the new tax law is beneficial. I cannot explain what the benefit of taking money from somebody's pocket. A man who has never paid taxes in his life. Because of course, this man fundamentally benefits nothing from government. I say it every day. When you are traveling by the road now, you keep your transport and you keep money for ransom. You can't even go by air. There's been an outrage on social media of the cost of air travel. And then you are literally your own government. You provide your own water. You provide your own light. There's a solar on top of this building. And it will soon go off and you see the lights go off. So when people come and say a new tax law that is taking money from people is to the benefit of the people, I do not know where those people are talking from. But definitely they are not talking on behalf of the Nigerian people. You talked about access. I don't know what you mean by access. Maybe access to information. The information is there for anyone who wants to read.
I mean access to your actual accounts. This is something that all through last week was talked about by the authorities, saying that don't worry.
Taiwo Oyedele stated clearly that some of the tools that will be used to access your tax is your bank account, your NIN, your BVN. So if you have multiple bank accounts, they can aggregate what is going on in your life by your BVN. As a matter of fact, if you ostentatious display of wealth is another way they will assess your taxes. So when money comes in, the onus is on you, the recipient of that money, to explain to government whether that money is taxable income or not taxable income, maybe gift and all of it. And there are very few incomes that are not taxable, chief of which is gift. Others are taxable. Honorarium is taxable. Winnings from your sports betting. If you are playing sports betting, let me not mention names of sports betting so that I don't unwittingly do advert for any organization here. If you are into sports betting and you win, you will pay taxes. If you are into cryptocurrency, you will pay taxes. Whether you are legitimately earning or illegitimately earning, you will pay taxes. Let us say the truth first. After saying the truth, we can now sit back and discuss, okay, what are the way out? And then there's this thing they always preach, that, oh, if you have a business name, go and register as a limited liability company. These people are teaching people tax evasion. You know, there's a thin line between tax evasion and tax avoidance. Avoidance is legal, it's good, but evasion is a different thing entirely. If you are not a limited liability company, you are not a limited liability company.
Okay, now Zekeri, let's stick to
there are large-scale enterprises. If you are a small-scale enterprise,
I beg your pardon, Zekeri. I understand that this is you want to get to talking about tax evasion and avoidance, but let's stick to what we're talking about here regarding access, for one, and then the discrepancy between your opinion and Yinka's opinion. But I couldn't help but notice that Nnamdi had some certain gestures while both of you were speaking. Nnamdi, what were those micro gestures we were seeing? Do you want to vocalize them, please?
Yes, absolutely. So on one hand, I identify with Yinka's call for Nigerians as members of civil society, as part of the nation, to be accountable and to be knowledgeable about the tax laws and their responsibility. But I also have to agree with Zekeri that I think it's morally reprehensible for the Nigerian government, given the amount of capital flight, waste and fraud and abuse that happens in the Nigerian system, specifically the political class, to now impose on the people and the various taxes that it's going to do with this new tax regime. It's really morally reprehensible. And I feel that pain that many Nigerians are going to feel, which is that, and I also want to clarify that Nigerians don't have an issue paying taxes. Nigerians have an issue with what do you do with our money. And the political class and the government, not just the Tinubu administration, but every single one of them, has never been accountable, has never shown any kind of transparency. If this administration wanted to be honest and to take a populist approach to this tax implementation. What they would have done is they would have also provided countermeasures to show the people mechanisms of accountability and transparency that will show the people, here is how we on our end are going to do a much better job of investing, of appropriating and allocating your capital or your tax nairas. And that's not happening. And I think that's morally reprehensible. But I think the government needs to be very careful here. If you look at many revolutions that have happened historically, they have happened when the government has pushed the people too far, especially on this question of taxation. And depending on how aggressive this government implements this new tax regime, specifically, for instance, by reaching into people's accounts and so on, the government is sitting on a powder keg that could explode in its face. So if the political class think that they are so immune and think they are so brazen in terms of their actions towards the people, they need to be quite cognizant of the fact that we are experiencing high inflation in Nigeria, food scarcity, insecurity, lack of services, territories where the government has no control. And you combine all these factors in, plus you are now also taking money from the people in the form of taxes that you're not going to be accountable nor transparent about. And it could blow up in the face of this government. So they need to be quite cognizant about that. Having said that, I also want to come back to this issue about how we are going to do this, which the government is now bringing in friends again, which I think is probably the most egregious aspect of this entire exercise. If the Nigerian government cannot utilize local talent, local technology, local skills and knowledge to implement its own tax system, and it has to go and do capacity building and has to go and bring in a foreign nation to do that, then we have failed. And I once again want to bring light to the fact that this poses a national security risk to Nigerians. And at some point, we have to draw a line in the sand to say how much of our sovereignty, how much of our dignity are we going to continue to outsource to foreign players and to the Western world. And I think it's very important that we don't forget this aspect of it. It's one thing to tax the people. It's another thing to bring a foreign power into our economic infrastructure to do whatever they think they're going to do in terms of facilitating this tax process. And I think that's egregious. And I also want to call for the National Assembly to look into that partnership and that MOU with the French government to see if there are grounds there for gross misconduct, which I believe is the case.
Now, I'd like to go further with access, Yinka, and this is for you. Can you just give me, in terms of accountability, are you now saying that the government can go into my account and take my money with no questions asked? And then I think the double edge of that is you mentioned how there should be a broken down, information that shows me where the money is going to. How do I then question that? Or is the government even willing to provide us with we go into your bank account, we take the money, and this is where the money goes?
All right, so I need to reply the other gentleman. He said I'm a friend of government. I don't know where he's getting that from. I'm just a citizen of Nigeria, and I don't know. I think we should be careful labeling people for no reason. Secondly, he's absolutely right. Somebody that gets 10,000 naira in a day, that's 3-point-something million in a year, and that's good. I mean, that's 3.6. Yes, so I was wrong in that completely. However, if you earn 3.6 million in a year, all right, under the old tax rate and the new tax rate, you're paying less with the new tax rate right now. So I mean, so that has to be. I mean, you can do the number, you can run the numbers as much as you can. So unless you are saying that somebody that earns that amount of money in a year should not pay tax. I mean, and that's a different conversation at all. I believe that
Yinka, I'm tempted to ask for you to break that down for us under the old system and the new system. So this is the education we're talking about here, so people can absolutely understand. Could you do that for us?
Yeah. I mean, well, so you have the graduated scale. I mean, I have to do the manual calculations, but it is a graduated scale. So if you earn 800,000 naira in a year, your tax is zero rated, your PIT is zero rated, okay? If you earn anywhere from 801 to I think 1 million naira, your tax rate is 15%. If you earn from there to 12 million naira, it is 18%. From 12 million to, I think, 25 is 21, 23%. And if you earn anywhere from 50 million and above, it's 25%. All right. And the only bracket in which your tax, your PIT increases is if you earn above 50 million naira in a year. And it's only even fractional, like 0.4% increase. So in reality, this is a progressive tax system that puts more money in your pocket if you are paying your tax with the new tax rate than if you were using the old tax rate. So unless people are saying that, okay, it's okay to not pay tax at all, again, that's a different conversation. I'm not, into that. Maybe that's where, maybe that's what the conversation should have been. Should we pay tax or should we not pay tax? But I believe that the conversation today is about paying tax. And how do we deal with the aftermath of the new tax law that will take effect from January 1st? On the issue of whether government has access to people's accounts and what they should pay and what they should pay, again, I say that people should be properly educated. A lot of these things that we are saying, that we're talking about right now, already exist in the old tax laws. In fact, the fact that if there's any tax audit on your account, the government has a right to go into your account and actually really just check it. That already exists with a lot of corporate entities, in which case they will audit you, they will go to your bank accounts, and they will make liabilities on top of it. The challenge here is, can they do this automatically without your consent? And I think that's an opportunity for lawyers to tax the government, maybe take it to the judicial process to be able to find out if they can really do that. But from what Tayo Idele is saying, he's saying that they will use all the data that they have to be able to aggregate somebody, to be able to determine exactly what income that you earn. Many people do not know that you have a responsibility by law to make tax returns every year. Yeah. You have a responsibility by law to make tax returns. So if you're not making your tax returns, you're already exposing yourself to liabilities. And so we must educate Nigerians. And then the last thing I want to say, please, before you chase me away, is this. We keep talking about Tinubu administration. Your PIT does not go to Tinubu. I don't know how many times we have to say this on air. It doesn't go to Tinubu. It goes to your state government. It goes to your governor. Your VAT goes to your governor, not to Tinubu's administration. So a lot of the benefits we're talking about here, a lot of the tax revenue we're talking about here, a lot of the accountability, the transparency, the everything we're asking will be required from the subnationals. So how about we begin to talk about targeting them? How about we begin to talk about what is transparency, what accountability is the Lagos state government giving me, the Ogun state government giving me, the Abia state government giving to me? All right, if we don't have this honest conversation and we keep talking about this in broad terms, we will lose the impact of it. And Nigerians need to be educated about what they need to do, tax responsibility, tax integrity, and the expected behavior that they should have. What kind of things they should allow to be transferred into their accounts, the descriptions of these things. These are the conversations we must be having. Okay. To begin to talk about whether or not they should pay tax or not, I think is a different conversation. Maybe it's one that we can have on another day. All right,
Yinka, like you said, before I chase you away, I want to know what your opinion is regarding the France partnership and this reform. What's your stance on it, real quick?
If what's that guy? Is it Zekeri?
No, that's directed at you, Yinka, please. What's your stance on the partnership with France regarding the reform?
I agree with the. I was trying to remember his name. The guy that was advocating against it. Is it Zekeri?
No, that's Nnamdi.
Nnamdi, okay, fine. I agree absolutely with Nnamdi. I think we have the capacity with a lot of our fintechs, a lot of our unicorns in here. There was a bank that built a core banking application from the scratch, Sterling Bank. They did it from the scratch. They didn't go to import Finacool or FlexCube or whatever it is. They built a banking application from the scratch, and it is working. We have the capacity in Nigeria to do this. We don't need to go to France. We don't need to go to any country. We can do it ourselves. We can enable our IT guys to get this infrastructure in place. So I agree with him. We don't need to go that far. I don't know why they did that, and I think that it probably should be investigated.
All right, thank you. Zekeri, regarding accountability, what do you think about, are you satisfied with what has been put forward by the authorities regarding how we can actually, maybe let's even start talking about tax returns, people filing in tax returns and also demanding to know where exactly their taxes are going. That's you, Zekeri.
I thank my brother for acknowledging that that was a mistake on his part. So that we shed that sword, that is covered. Yeah, that's then good. You talk about accountability. Let us know where the money is going to. The government of this country has never been accountable, and I'm not being a mindless critic. Where is the money that was recovered from fuel subsidy? Can any of us in this studio tell me today how much we have gotten from fuel subsidy removal? So this is a government that is not accountable. It's like you are flogging a dead horse. And then you ask the question, I think this is important to our viewers. To someone who earns 10,000 naira a month, when the deductions are done, the first 800,000 that is tax-free, the remaining money with you, you are going to pay 15%. And like they usually would say that you are going to pay less. The former personal income tax scale was between 7 to 21%. Agrees that then it starts from 300,000 naira tax-free. Now it's 800,000 naira. But now you are going to pay 15%. 15% of 2.9 million, your annual income, is not a joke to the Nigerian of today. Especially a Nigerian that provides everything for his or herself. You provide everything for yourself and your family. To answer your question so that I don't derail too much, the government must show goodwill. Account for custom and excise duties money. Account for the VAT they are already collecting, the money they collect from beer and all the other things. Account for the money that we get from exploration and exportation of oil. As we speak, Saudi Arabia, that is doing figures that we cannot imagine, can tell every single barrel of oil that leaves his country. Our country cannot account for the amount of oil leaving our shores on a daily basis. Big ships come here and take oil, and they will convince you and I that it is crude oil theft. Big ship, as if oil is sweet that you can put in your pocket. Let's leave that aspect. I will conclude this your question by saying, if the government is not showing goodwill, if the government is not being honest, people cannot trust them. My brother said the money goes to the governor. It is President Tinubu that signed the tax law. I have never seen where a person will sign a law that does not favor him or her. There is a sharing formula to it. And this presidency, this present presidency, will benefit from it as much as the governor. And I am not only here talking about the presidency. Our governors are also equally as culpable. We have governors who do not account to anyone. We have state house of assembly that cannot do oversight. We have state house of assembly that are mere rubber stamp. And it has now elevated even to a national level. There is nothing that goes to the National Assembly now that is not passed. Is it that kind of country that you want me to entrust my money to the government? And I'll conclude this by talking to the Nigerian people. No matter how much we advocate here, it is law. Except something happens, the laws are meant for human beings. Except the human beings who these laws are meant for reject it in January, we are all going to pay tax. You that is pretending not to be interested in politics. 93 million people were registered to vote in the last election. 93 million. Only 23 million voted. The other 70 million can either explain to me and you why they were not part of the process that elected the leaders that want to take taxes now. In 2027, will you vote or will you not vote? I leave that question to the average Nigerian who think he or she is too important to vote when you start paying your tax next year.
Zekeri, that's a very interesting way to bring it all back to responsibility for the average Nigerian. And I don't know if Nnamdi has something to tell about that responsibility and what we are into now and what we could do. Nnamdi, do you have a final thought? And if you could keep it summary, please.
No, 100%. Again, to break the tax conversation into its constituent parts. On one hand, the government has a responsibility to broaden its tax net, no problem. But the government also has a responsibility for accountability and transparency, and it's been woeful. The second point is in terms of Nigerians. I think we should be very careful and sensitive not to lecture Nigerians about their responsibility to pay taxes in a state that gives them, quite frankly, nothing.